Live. There we go.
All right. Hey, good afternoon, guys. Thanks for taking the time to join and get together for this meeting. We have a lot of stuff we need to cover today. So before we get started, I'd like to have Pete go over the meeting norms that we established last time we got together so we can make sure that we're all on the same page as we go through this. So Pete, if you could.
Yeah, sure. So today we're going to have to make sure we have a clear agenda set for our meeting. We're going to limit sidebar conversations. I've tried to limit my interruptions here in my office here today, but there might be some, but I'll keep those to a minimum as much as possible. We agreed that everyone must contribute to our meeting. The needs to communicate together and not just to the leader. So Jason will be talking, Tom and I too during this potentially. But we'll take that step by step, and then we'll share all the ideas and then bring them up for a consensus decision. We'll try not to dominate the conversations here. Everyone will be punctual, which today we're all on time here. We're starting right around where we promised. We'll park non-pertinent information. We'll use reflective listening, and we'll try to maintain a professional atmosphere.
All right. Thank you. I think we can all agree with that. That should make it go nicely and smooth. Thank you for reading that.
You're welcome.
Pete. So for the agenda today, just to make sure that we kind of stay on topic, we've been tasked with kind of digging into some of the new problems that have recently come up with Drip Dry's opening and some things that we just might want to get in front of. So just to kind of stay on the same page, I think the first thing we need to do is figure out exactly what process or what function we'd like to use to solve this problem and to discuss so that we're all on the same page. And then I feel that we need to really dig in and clearly define exactly what the problem is so that we understand what we're assessing and what solutions we're trying to put forward, as well as all the factors that come in to that. And then once we've established that and gone through all that, I think just some general discussion and some brainstorming time, a little brainstorming session to kind of spark the ideas and maybe get some solutions down on paper that we can send to Fred and Carrie for the to give them an update as to what we've pinpointed as possible avenues to solve the problem. How does that sound, everybody?
Looks good.
Sounds like a great plan.
So basically, I think I'll open it up for a suggestion, but after looking through the material on the problem-solving approaches, I feel that the prescriptive approach is the one that I prefer. I think it uses a lot of rational, positive, and negatives. It kind of can weigh all the variables, and it'll just help us be a little more efficient. But I'm curious as to your thoughts as well.
I think the section that talked about the successes of teamwork really brought out the important points of gathering data and looking at all the options, focusing them, and those really, to me, align best with the prescriptive approach, where you're sitting down and you have a model of where you're identifying and analyzing, coming up with alternatives, and then working towards an implementation with the goal to reevaluate and redirect if you need to. So,
yeah, I have to say, Tom and Jason, I am in total agreement with you guys. I had put a check mark next to that on my notes for this presentation here, and said, the rational problem-solving strategy. I really like the fact that there's a recognition and definition of the problem right out of the gate, analysis, and then a generation of alternative solutions. And I thought really that plays to what we do for careers, where we have to think critically about every decision we make because there's so much on the line. So I think that plays to our strength. So I couldn't agree more.
Okay. So that sounds like a consensus. So I feel like we're going to use the prescriptive model for our problem solving. So I'll write that down, and basically moving on to the next piece of the agenda. Could someone maybe dig deep into the factors and kind of start to outline what the problem is that they've laid out for us?
So I kind of focused in on a few key words in the definition of the assignment, right? It was that the existing customers base that we have is unhappy. Um, the the building's gone from being a quiet, not so full building to being overcapacity or at capacity, which makes it noisy, not conducive to sitting down and relaxing like we want it to be. And then people are staying all day because it's free internet and doesn't cost them anything to be there. So those were the key things that stood out to me.
I agree.
So,
Keith, what are your observations?
so I really tried to dig into really the problem analysis here. What was at the root of the problem? And really it was, maximizing our throughput. I thought through the facility. It sounded like, and I remember when we were reading this and doing our strategies about this layout, that they talked about, staff potentially being a problem, and then you're going to have more delays in getting people in and out of the facility. And it looks like all those things, here came true. So I thought, if we could focus too, as one of the things that to address is maybe these could be grouped into some type of category as part of this first step in the program here to say, hey, you know what, these all look like they're the same kind of related to the same issue. Does that make sense?
It does. So I just want to. You were saying so. Your readout of it was well. Actually, no. So Tom, you were kind of saying that the existing. Your takeaways were the existing customer base is annoyed or unhappy with the changes in more people loitering because of the free Wi-Fi, not really contributing to the business, more just kind of mooching off it, to use a crass word. But and then the other, Pete, your takeaways were that you feel that they're trying to maximize their throughput and they're getting some challenges with not enough staff to support the demand, and you want to kind of break those out into categories and go through them that way. Is that
Yeah,
kind
potentially that could do it, because I mean, you could look at things like, I'll just throw this out there as a random example, like table size that you're allowing customers to sit at. We read these articles about other coffee shops that have dealt with this problem, and they lay out all their equipment all over the place. So something along that line. I was thinking, hey, what else would that solve if you did that? Could you knock a couple of these problems out by grouping them together?
so? I had kind of dug in that they had sent us, and it kind of laid out a lot of what Fred and Carrie's observations of the problems were. And I think if we went down this list, it would help with the brainstorming because there are a lot of factors here that they're weighing. My biggest takeaways, just to summarize it, is it seems like basically the business became real popular real quick, and we didn't have the staff scale to support the demand. And the customers are frustrated, the ones that are actually using the business for what it's meant for are frustrated because of they're not getting the relaxed atmosphere, as Tom put it, that we want. And in that, there's that battle of, are we going to lose customers because of that, or how do we scale and adjust, and for how long will this continue to be how it is, right? So, like, one of the articles that they had in the material around the overnight sensation article, I thought was very telling and a pretty big takeaway as to exactly what our problem is. We boom real quick and we didn't have it set to scale because it was unforeseen circumstance. Is that I mean, that's the way I'm kind of taking it. And it sounds like you guys are kind of on the same page, just looking at it from different factors.
Yep.
I agree. I mean, it's just basically this one problem of that rapid growth that's slayed into the rest of these problems. So that seems to be the root source of, why this is occurring.
So if we took Carrie's observations from the problem statement that she shared, and we kind of looked at these factors, not enough seating for the number of patrons, it's at capacity between certain hours, It's loud and chaotic when it was once relaxed, has been called out by Tom, and faithful customers have said they're concerned. Again, Tom called out the existing customer base. Lack of parking, people letting their laundry sit, so people aren't necessarily getting an opportunity to utilize the laundry machines. And then obviously, like you had said, Pete, they're not maximizing their revenue and their throughput. So one of the things is, I think those are all the factors. I think those are the factors that we all kind of called out. So I guess to transition from that into the next kind of portion of this meeting is, does anyone have any solutions or ideas to address some of the factors and maybe kind of build out from that?
Tom, you want to take it and then I'll follow up.
I can pause for 1 second, guys. Thanks.
I'm sorry, it broke up. I couldn't hear.
Oh, I had somebody walk in. Sorry, I was trying to. I missed that section. Sorry.
I can take it first. No worries. So basically, if we want to break this down, I know, where do we start here, Jason? Do you think that, we start with, we don't want to jump to a conclusion that we need to expand the business immediately. It seems like there's an opportunity potentially to segment these customers in a little bit better.
So let me stop you real quick just before we start getting too far down the rabbit hole. The purpose of the meeting today is just to come up with ideas. So high level, broad summary. The deep dive on that will come at another meeting once we have a defined solution. But what we want to do is come up with a few ideas to pitch to the higher ups to see where their appetite is.
So one of the things that popped to my mind when I was reading through some of the challenges was maybe there was a way to try and limit people's amount of time they're spending there versus spending all day. Perhaps the Wi-Fi has a timeout of 3 hours per MAC address per day, or maybe a mobile ordering app that would allow customers to place their orders and not have to wait in line. It's not anything new, but for the size of our business, it's definitely would change the way we.
So you kind of hit on one of the ideas that I kind of had with the Wi-Fi of if we gave out free Wi-Fi for an hour based on MAC address, but then anything after an hour they had to pay for. Because one of the issues is you have people there for 3 hours, they only buy one drink, but they're kind of loitering and just kind of being in the way of other customers that want to use the services. So if you make them have to pay for the Wi-Fi, maybe it'll start to force customers to move.
Yeah, the only reason I went with 3 was because if somebody's doing laundry, we really don't want to discourage them from utilizing those services. But
true, good point.
But I think it is an option.
What do you think about that, Pete?
I think that's a great idea, and I think if you couple that with like the ergonomic changes of or potential of ergonomic changes to like maybe chairs, instead of making them very comfortable, you make them a little bit more difficult to sit in for extended periods of time, like 4 or 5 hours. And we look at some alternative options there to increase the people coming in and out of the building, just because of they don't potentially have to get out. Because if you're moving and you're going to your laundry, you're not going to be sitting in a seat. But if you're sitting there on your Wi-Fi, then potentially you're just sitting there. So maybe limit that.
You had mentioned table sizes earlier. What if something like that was a good idea? Like, what if you only did high tops, or you only did bar sitting? Less comfortability there.
I think that's perfect. So the spacing in the parking spaces, this is the one I struggled with. Do you guys have anything that you thought we could solve for the parking?
A shuttle service, buy a lot somewhere, grab a shuttle service maybe. Understanding that shuttle service would have to be a unique style shuttle, because you'd have to be able to shuttle people with laundry. but that was an idea that kind of popped in my head when I heard it.
The other thing I thought was maybe there's a way to lease a additional parking from another business nearby. It might be a way to increase the parking without having to pay huge expenses.
You know, the other thing I was thinking about is we do have a group of our customers that have come back, you know, over time and have written us great reviews. Maybe we give them some type of parking sticker for, you know, premium parking, so that when they
Oh,
show,
like an incentive.
right, an incentive to be, you know, a customer and, you know, have some type of uh, term in there. So if we do break out the parking lot and say, you know, we're going to dedicate an eighth to our best customers here, and then if you get this, we could allocate these special spots to you. You know, it would be something, you know, as a bonus.
Not a bad idea. Sorry. Okay. So that those are a couple ideas for parking. Capacity issues we've kind of hit. What about, so people who order food neglect to pick up their finished laundry in a timely fashion? That one's a tough one for me too. So basically what they're saying is people are putting their laundry in and then they're going and ordering food and then they're sitting down and having a meal and socializing,
Mm.
not going to change over their load or pull their laundry out right when it's done.
Which
Maybe. Go ahead.
Of dryers and washers being able to be free for other customers, right? So
Yeah.
Any
ideas on that?
I was thinking that, you know, when you go to a restaurant, you wait for a table. They sometimes hand you those, you know, vibrating light up discs that tell you your table's ready.
took it right out.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, maybe you put them on the machine, and then basically after, you know, a standard like 45-minute period that we know our machines run at, you know, it goes off and gives the customer a reminder.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way to address that I could think of.
Same, so I had the same exact thought. And then that actually would help with the capacity issue, because if we get one that has enough range, you can leave, come back.
Well, I don't know if we want to encourage that, but
well, if you think about it, if your laundry's there, I mean, what are you gonna? It helps to clear space for the food patrons and the drink patrons. You're doing laundry, you put it in the wash, you leave, it vibrates, you come back, switch it, leave, vibrates, come back, you're done. It kind of puts it into a cycle. And at worst, let's say there's some theft and the vibrating panels walk off. People are leaving their laundry, so we can donate that, and then we just write off the cost as part of doing business. But that was an idea that feeds kind of well into that as well.
One of the other ideas I thought about, you know, because it really does seem congestion is a big problem there. Maybe we need to look at how the food's packaged for our meals, and we consider different meal options that are just wrapped in saran wrap, or, you know, that we can just hand out instead of having to heat up. And we lean more into those options if the sales are there to support that. Hey, we could, you know, we could shift to that model and save us some time.
Yeah, I think when we first initially started talking about doing a food option in the coffee place, there was the idea of having that outsourced to a catering company, and that it was all prepackaged. That way, there wasn't a lot of time being taken up in prepping the meals and staff to do it, right? So if we went back and revisited that, perhaps that would solve some of the line issues. But I think I keep going back to if it's for drinks or so forth, the easiest way I can think to eliminate a line around food is ordering ahead of time. Whether it's calling in the order or whether it's doing a mobile order or whatever. you know, having it so they don't have, it's ready for them when they show up.
Makes sense.
So like app ordering, call in, any of that.
Yep.
I'm just taking the notes. Any
Good
other
idea.
suggestions around that while I kind of catch up on my notes?
No, I think that's perfect.
Yeah. So I think we've gotten a lot. We have a lot down on paper. Before we go and close this out, I want to just circle back through and make sure that I captured everything. So what I have for notes, problem solving method, prescriptive approach. It's going to help us to align thinking and analyze the variables and come up with alternate solutions. The problem issues, several, you kind of break them out, but basically existing customer base is annoyed. Free Wi-Fi is causing loiterers. Maximizing throughput is a challenge. Staff challenges. And then for solutions around peak time capacity and just capacity in general, as well as chaotic and loud environment, limit time in the shop. How? Wi-Fi time limits, ergonomic changes, uncomfortable chairs, certain styles of seating, whether it's high top or bar stool only, something that's you're less likely to spend a long period of time in. For parking, a shuttle service or leasing of an additional lot, add in an incentive program for existing customers. And then the food and beverage challenges around how long it takes people to get there or how long laundry is sitting because of a vibrating alarm similar to the restaurants to hand out, or when your load is done. I also suggested that could help with capacity too, so roping that back in with the capacity piece as well. And then ordering ahead of time, app-based mobile, call ahead, and prepackaged food. And then just to make sure I capture who captured all these, time in the shop. So Wi-Fi time limits was more of a consensus. So I actually remember, I can put that down. But Tom, you had lease an additional lot. Pete, existing customer incentive, primo parking, shuttle service, me. The vibrating alarm was a consensus. Order ahead of time, Tom. Pre-wrap food, Pete. And Wi-Fi time limits, myself and Tom. Does that summarize everything that we just kind of went through? Or is there anything I need to add that I may have missed?
I think that was a great summary.
Yep. I think the key though is to make sure we fall within those constraints with any of the decisions we make, right, as we move forward.
Yes.
So, making sure that we focus on what the actual cost is going to be, so we stay within budget. And making sure we don't change the overarching business plan or mission that we originally set out with, which is to be a comfortable and relaxing environment for all patrons.
So that's a good point. And just to kind of dovetail off of that, the comfortable and relaxing atmosphere might actually be a constraint that would hinder any ergonomic changes that we may want to put forward, because that would.
Well, we wouldn't know until we invest in it, right?
Correct.
We'd have
So
to
just wanted to put that out as a disclaimer.
Yeah, and I think the compromise might be, that's a good point, is that we just use smaller tables, right? That doesn't how comfortable you are, for the most part, except the people that we've seen, in these articles that have been detailed that take up that space and that they're a detriment to businesses. So as far as that goes, I think that would be, a compromise between the two plans.
Okay, so I'm just going to capture that as smaller tables if other ergonomic changes are viewed to be outside of what would be the norm for our business model or the goal. I was thinking of a different word, but I couldn't come up with it. So I think that kind of captures everything. Does everybody feel comfortable with where we're at, or does anybody have anything else they'd like to add or have captured to submit to Fred and Carrie?
No.
Okay. Thank you guys for taking the time. I think we got a lot of material here, and I'll touch base with you guys when I have the memo typed up and ready for submission.
Sounds good.
Thank you for hosting the call, Jason.
Thank you.